hopefully YouTube will start working. Oh, I should have brought my other headphones to monitor YouTube. Alright, so streaming is going. Does YouTube see it coming? YouTube sees it coming.
Okay.
Let me get this stuff set up here. Do we have the second quarter results? Second quarter 2023 ended.
Tim was frickin'.
Probably not late enough in the year, in the month. Oh, they're going to announce it on May 4th, so we don't have that quarter data yet.
Okay, so can we officially start the meeting, or you still need time?
Let me make sure YouTube is getting it. I didn't get a notification of a subscription, which annoys me. Let me see here. CIDER live stream says it's working. I can see people. Oh, I can hear me and I can hear everybody else. So I'm going to say the audio is
All
working.
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So we'll officially start the meeting at 7:15 for April 12th, 2023.
I think that's a record.
All right. Yep. On a beautiful, beautiful day
Yes, it was.
in Rochester, New York, with a few more to come.
Yes.
So, all right, then Steve, I guess we'll start off with you, whatever you want to start with. Q&A, or news, Apple News, whatever.
Yeah, I was checking to see if the quarter had come out yet. Or finished. Yeah. Yeah, so they're not going to announce the quarterly results until May 5th. Alright, let's see. One thing they did announce, let me share that screen. So into here, I'm going to share a screen, share a window, share the Apple newsroom, share. Okay, so you should be able to see my Apple newsroom window. And
Steve,
I have to zoom it to make it bigger. There we are. Yep.
Steve, as far as YouTube is concerned, you're on there okay. I'm getting it, but if you want to bump your volume a tad up into the yellow, that would be okay too.
Okay. Up, 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 up. No, I'm too loud. Alright, so probably one of the biggest news things that did come out, nope, not carbon renewal, is WWDC has been announced. So June 5th is going to be the developer conference. And if you want to submit your Swift programming as a Swift student, you can do that through April 19th. So WWDC is generally used for developers to see new software from Apple. They usually get the first look at the new iOS and the new macOS. Also hands-on with Apple engineers that write the software. So if you're writing programs and you're having trouble figuring something out, it's someplace where you can go to get answers. We are expecting possibly the replacement for the Intel Mac Pro to come out. It's the last of the Intel models that are need to be replaced. Although for most people, the Mac Studio is more than enough replacement for the Mac Pro. The one thing the Mac Pro has is slots, and whether and what kind of things you'll be able to add to Mac Pro slots is going to be the question. But it's a very small target market for super high-end Macs, and so it kind of shows off what Apple can do with no money constraint. In fact, the current Mac Pro Apple starts at $5,000 or $6,000, and when you max everything out, yeah, you want it on feet, or you want it on a rack mount, or if you want wheels, wheels cost more. Yeah, so it starts at $6,000, and we always have fun maxing everything out. If I make this bigger, does it make that bigger? So let's go to the Super 28-core processor. Now, and so 28-core processor is the most it can do. Even on the current Macs with Apple Silicon, there's a couple of them that have more than 30 cores. What is it? There's 20 CPU cores, 30 GPU cores. So most of the current Apple Silicon Macs are faster than even the fastest Mac Pro. Most of the Macs will max out at 128 gigs of RAM, so being able to put a terabyte of RAM in is amazing. If you want multiple video cards, let's just max everything. 8 terabytes of storage, afterburner, put the wheels on. So, we're at $50,000 for a maxed out Mac Pro, and that is a very, very tiny market. Mostly Hollywood video effects. All the big, CGI movies. A lot of them are rendered and developed on the high-end Mac Pros because you can do so much. But the Mac Studio is probably a better value for people who want superpower, and that starts at $2,000 for the Max and $4,000 for the Ultra. And so that already has, what is that, 30? That has 40 cores on the Max. 4, 6, 9, 100 cores, yay, on the Ultra. Where the Mac Pro, the most it has is 28 cores. So we'll all excited to see what's going to be happening next. But WWDC is the kind of place where a Mac Pro replacement would be shown, so that developers will be able to get their programs updated to take advantage of the super processing power of them. What else was interesting? Yeah, the Buy Now Pay Later is a new feature from Apple, Apple Pay, and it's, I guess, conceptually similar to a credit card. So whatever you buy, it's split into 4 payments with 0 interest and no fees. So instead of paying $1,000 at once, you pay $250 I think it's every 2 weeks. Spread over 6 weeks. So 4 payments spread over 6 weeks. So it's similar to the PayPal Pay Later that they're doing. Square and Venmo and a lot of the other payment processing companies have started doing this, but Apple has added this right into your Apple Wallet, so that it's not a credit card, so you don't have to have any credit. It just splits the payments into 4 payments over 6 weeks. So if you want to get that $50,000 Mac, it's only $10,000 every few days. How many people like classical music? There was a classical music subscription service that Apple bought a while ago and killed, and they have finally released it as part of Apple Music. For Apple Music subscribers, you have the classical is a standalone app now. And one of the things about classical music that's different is, you say Beethoven's Fifth Symphony has been performed thousands of times by hundreds of orchestras and dozens of conductors. Yeah, so say you want, the 1930 performance with, Leonard Bernstein, or, I don't know my conductors, or you want the 1980 performance with Itzhak Perlman. And so that's hard to do in regular music. And so Apple has really pushed that into the classic channel. So if you really like classical music, it's a much better way to listen. Let's see, if I play this, can you hear the audio? I am not hearing the audio. Are you guys
No.
hearing the audio? Okay.
Nope.
So that's interesting. Where's the audio going? If no one's hearing it, it should be going out the headphone jack, which then goes into, that'd be interesting. Is it showing up in YouTube? No, it's not on YouTube either. Oh well. Well, then maybe Apple won't take us down. Um, they've had a couple.
I have a question.
Yes.
Um, are you saying that for a given classical piece, they may have multiple different orchestras versions of it?
Yes.
Because I happen to have a book called 1000 Recordings to Hear Before You Die. And it recommends pieces by specific versions, actually, recordings, but maybe by the recording company, but a particular orchestra and conductor. And that might be an interesting way to access that kind of thing.
Yep.
The book also, that's the book. The book also covers, jazz and all kinds of other things, so that wouldn't be pertinent here, but it might be beneficial. I don't know. I'm not
How many have you listened to of the 1,000?
Easily 2 or 3. Makes a hell of a paperweight, though.
Okay.
Yeah, how many pages is it? 992 pages.
About 2 inches.
So the neat thing about Apple Classical is it's, where does it say? It's part of Apple Music. So if you subscribe to Apple Music, it's available at no additional charge. And it is a separate app in the App Store, so you don't have to have your classical music mixed in with your pop music. And so if I hit that, it should take me to the App Store. Yep. So the App Store for iPhone and iPad. Oh, it's number 9 in music apps. So it's 192 kilohertz at 24-bit high-res lossless audio. Many of them are in spatial audio too. So if you have a spatial audio compatible headphone or speaker, then the music can feel like it's coming from all around you. Let's see. So you need any Apple Music subscription. So if you're already paying for pop music, you can join Apple Music to get it. Or if you just want classical now, you can join the Apple Music subscription in order to listen. And Apple Music, I think, is $6.99 a month. Does it say in here anywhere? Usually. Apple Music. You get 1 month free. If you buy a new Apple device, you get 3 months free, I think it is. And then it's $10.99 a month after that. So 6 months. Buy a new Apple device, get 6 months free, or $10.99 a month. And if you subscribe to a lot of Apple services, the Apple One plan might be something to look at. It bundles multiple different services together, iCloud, Apple TV, Music, and Arcade, plus 50 gigabytes of storage for 17 a month, or 200 gigs for 23 a month, or 2 terabytes for 32 a month, and that also then includes fitness and news. Yeah, those are the multiple ones. And they all are shareable in your family. So I just happened to notice that both Shirley and I are paying $10 a month for iCloud storage. So I said, no, we can share between us and only pay $10 a month once. So we're not using more than 1 terabyte each to fill that 2 terabytes. So if people forgetting that, especially in your family with a spouse, you can and children, you can see you can set up an iCloud family and share your services between them, which is especially handy for music and TV, and now iCloud storage. So the 99 cents for 50 gigs of storage is pretty good. $2.99 for 200 gigs is okay, but then it jumps to $9.99 for 2,000 gigs. I wish there was like a 1,000 gig in the middle there, for maybe like $6.99, $7.99. But now for the $9.99, Shirley and I are both sharing, so we basically are only paying $5 a month each instead of both of us paying $10 a month.
So who's actually paying for that, you or me?
I'm not sure yet because it charged my account and then refunded my account.
Well,
But I am the family organizer, so it'll probably charge me.
all right, I'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah. That's the one thing about it that's a little tricky, is that if you share your purchases, then the family organizer pays for everybody's purchases. I didn't find a way yet to split out purchases. So, I want the kids to pay for their own, but share with everybody else. I haven't found a way to do that other than the family organizer paying for everything. So that's a nice option for people that like classical music, having that Apple Classical available. Do we have any baseball fans? Did anyone watch Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV Plus? They made a big deal about having soccer and Major League Soccer, American soccer. They don't have the British leagues that are popular. But from all the reviews and people that talked about baseball said it was pretty bad. The announcers were dull and didn't sound like they knew anything about baseball. So a lot of times people said they would put the game on the TV, mute the volume, and then tune in the radio station of their home team in order over the internet to listen to the play-by-play on the radio. And that kind of goes along with Apple is out of the running for NFL game day. Apparently, $2 billion a year that Apple was rumored to be willing to pay wasn't enough for the NFL. But knowing Apple, they would want concessions on worldwide distribution rights, the multiple cameras. See, that's the big thing that live streaming of sporting events can really do is multiple camera angles, multiple streaming. Say you want to watch a baseball game from the pitcher's point of view or for the batter's point of view, or split screen between the two of them. As a computer live stream, it should be able to do that easily. But a lot of especially traditional sports are stuck in the broadcast mentality where you only show one camera at a time. Which is
Steve, if you were watching it from the pitcher's view, for example, do they do that with a long telephoto lens from the other side of the field, or do they use a drone, or what?
Well, probably. I've seen some games that look like they have a drone, but I think it's on wires. There were problems at the Olympics a couple years ago where drone ran out of battery and almost hit a skier when it crashed. So I've seen what looks like flying camera rigs, but they're on wire guides. But theoretically, you could put a camera on the on the players' uniforms or on their helmets, and you could actually see player by player. I've read several science fiction stories. There was one author, Scott Sigler, that I read that he did a science fiction football series called the Galactic Football League, and every player had helmet cams, and so as you were watching around the galaxy, you could watch the play by whatever player you wanted to. Who's your favorite player? You watch the camera coming off their head, and that was a pretty neat option.
Quick reminder to everyone, if you are not going to be talking, you should definitely mute your microphone, because any little noises you make come on and interfere with the broadcast.
Yeah, you can just click the first little icon in the window to mute your mic. The second icon will mute your speakers, so that will leave the audio, so that you don't want to do. But clicking that first little old school microphone icon will mute your mic. And then if you try talking when your mic is muted, you get a message saying your mic is muted. You want to unmute it. Alrighty, that's probably about everything. Excuse me, new recently from Apple. Let's see. Oh, the Oscars. Anyone watch the Academy Awards? Apple was nominated for a bunch of categories and won Best Animated Short.
Nobody got hit this year, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of interesting comments that Will Smith's new movie that was on Apple TV should have been an Oscar contender, but probably wasn't because of the incident last year. So a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse. Is that one of those things where they're trying to cross the river without eating each other?
Hey, Steve, did you see the security issue that Apple was talking about with their Apple WebKit, and that you should upgrade everything as soon as possible?
Not specifically, but that's generally the recommendation. Update everything as soon as it comes out.
You might want to discuss that and look it up on Google or wherever.
That's not
talk
what I
to
wanted.
people quickly about it.
Yeah, companies are finding problems all the time. There are, here we go, security updates. There are engineers at Apple that are looking for bugs. There are commercial engineers. Google has their Tavis Ormandy is one of their big security guys. Microsoft, all the big companies have security teams. Trend Micro has a big security team, and they often will find bugs, and the good guys will tell the company and let them fix it. There are some interesting bad guys that often will sell the bug to there's a marketplace called Zerodium that will pay for bugs so they can break into other people's computers. Excuse me, which is crazy. But it's there. So yeah, so April 10th, there are a bunch of bug fixes out for all the OSs. One of the issues that the security community doesn't like. So this one came from Google's threat analysis group. Every vulnerability or exploit gets a CVE number, which is the Common Vulnerabilities and Exploits database. Apple doesn't go into any detail about what the vulnerability was or how they fixed it, where Microsoft goes into excruciating detail. And because of that, Microsoft generally releases patches on the second Tuesday of the month. By the Thursday following that, there are hundreds of exploit programs exploiting those bugs that Microsoft just gave great detail on because they know everyone won't update fast enough. And so Patch Tuesday is very often followed by Exploit Wednesday, where in the Apple community they don't give the down and dirty details, and some companies don't like that. But I can kind of see, I can see the advantage of that you don't want bad guys to know any more than they have to. Oop, there's the cat is mad at you, Shirley. So this was input validation. For God's sakes, when you're writing a program, sanitize your inputs.
Surely sounds like a cat.
Yeah.
I know.
And so input validation is a big problem, and what happens frequently is somebody figures out how to put code in a entry field. So it says enter your first name, and someone will figure out if they paste a JavaScript program in that first name field, they can get that script to execute. And so that's why they say arbitrary code execution, which means that a bad guy can run any program they want on your computer. Reconnecting at my end. All right. Refreshing the page. All right. So we're back. Lost the screen share, but that's okay. So the bottom line is install updates as soon as you can. The third digit, so like the 12.6, let me bring that back up again. Go back to here. So 11.7.6, the third digit are bug fixes. The second digit is often minor features, and the first digit is major features. Second digit and third digit updates you should install immediately. The first digit generally can cause issues if you run old software, may not be compatible. So we had 11 and then 12. We're on OS 13 now, Mac OS 13, which incidentally, there it is, 13.3.1 is the latest update for Ventura. And you generally want to have those updates installed as soon as possible. When Mac OS 14 comes out this fall, which is what they'll be showing at WWDC for developers to look at, that takes more of an issue where you have to check if you have any third-party programs that aren't compatible, or if you're running on an older computer. Let's see, 13, I want Ventura. If you're running on an older computer, you may not have enough memory. So on Apple's website, they always have in addition to, here's all the really cool new stuff, way down at the bottom. Farther down, farther down, farther down. Here we go. So here's a list of the computers that can run Ventura. And they basically, 2017 is now the oldest model that can do Ventura, where the previous Monterey could do some 2015 models. So it's likely that we're going to push that forward to some 2018s and maybe 2019s. It's funny that 2018 doesn't sound that long ago, but it's more than 5 years. Oops, I forgot to make that bigger again. So that it's not that doesn't sound that long ago, but it is that long ago. And so before you upgrade that first digit, you need to make really sure that all of your systems can run it. Even now, we've started seeing in the last 2 or 3 versions that if you're not running an SSD, then the operating a solid state drive, if you still have an old spinning drive, the OS is probably going to run really slow on your computer. They really, really want SSDs now, because most of the Macs have had SSDs for 5 or 6 years already. So just because your iMac 2017 can run Ventura doesn't necessarily mean you want it to. Alrighty. Anyone else have any newsy type stuff they want to talk about? Thank you for that security reminder, Rick. A lot of those just pass right over because they come out so often. Oops. I'm not hearing anybody. But I can hear it on Shirley's computer in the other room. That's odd. You're hearing me, right? I'm going to disconnect from the audio and reconnect again. Hang on. All right, now I can hear you.
Steve, can you hear me now?
Yes. And it looks like
Right.
YouTube still hears me too.
The question, you were talking about SSDs and hard drives, spinning hard drives. The question I have is, I just had a hard drive go bad. And I just got a new 3 terabyte spinning drive, HDD. And it's for my iMac, which is running APFS. For that external drive, does it have to be APFS or should I do Mac extended journal?
It doesn't have to be APFS. SSDs are generally recommended to be APFS now, but it's the Apple APFS, Apple filing system, is the latest filing system, and eventually there'll be an OS where everything has to be APFS. Currently, it doesn't have to be. It's a more efficient file system, so files are stored more efficiently. If you remember the HFS journaled, the journaling process is a way of data redundancy to help against data loss if there's a head crash. APFS has more redundancy built into it like that to make drives a little less fragile. So it currently doesn't have to be, but it can be. On an internal drive, an internal SSD will get converted to APFS when you install the operating system. So even if it starts out as HFS, it will get converted to APFS.
So if I were to do, let's say, carbon clone my drive, it will convert it to APFS?
No. The system installer will.
But I'm probably just better off using the external drive APFS.
Probably. There are some very old utility programs like Disk Warrior and Data Rescue that don't work on APFS. So they would have to be updated. It really annoys me that Disk Warrior hasn't been updated for APFS, and their basic answer is it doesn't need to be because the problems Disk Warrior fixed don't happen on APFS drives. But it was just a nice utility to use. But during the cloning process, the utility you use, like Carbon Copy Cloner, has to be aware of APFS so it does it right. One of the major differences in the way APFS formats your system disk is it actually partitions your drive into 2 volumes. One is the operating system volume, and the other is the data volume that it puts all of your data on, with the idea that the separating system and data is better. If something goes wrong with the system, it doesn't affect your data. But then APFS hides that 2 separate volumes under one icon that says Macintosh HD. So if you go into your disk utility, you'll see both of those volumes hiding in there, even though on the desktop it only shows as one. So we're seeing new features in APFS, and that's why disk utilities like Carbon Copy Cloner, Super Duper, and some of the other ones need to be aware of APFS before they'll work properly on it.
For example, my time machine, when I boot up my time machine, it shows both of those drives, the data drive, and even though there's nothing on the other drive, it still shows on the desktop.
Yeah.
It is APFS.
Yes, Time Machine, I forget what system version it was, a couple of versions ago, it might have been on Big Sur. It switched Time Machine drives to APFS. So normally Time Machine keeps a separate folder for every backup. Under APFS, Time Machine creates a separate volume for every backup. And it's a subtle difference, but it's supposed to be more the opposite of vulnerable. It's more secure in that if one volume dies, the other volumes don't. Where with the older Time Machine architecture, if there's a corruption in one of the backups, it can actually mess up all of the backups. And so if you start a new Time Machine backup drive on a newer OS, and I think it was Big Sur and later, it will format the Time Machine drive to APFS. But if the drive was formatted earlier for Time Machine, then it can stay HFS. And because Time Machine allows you to do bootable recovery, you boot your Time Machine drive and it can reload the OS as well. That's why you're seeing both volumes. You'll see the system volume and the data volume. And I was going back here on iMacs have an interesting option. Most iMacs support 2 drives. Some of them will support 3. The standard hard drive bay and many drives will have a PCI slot on the back of the logic board for an SSD. And in many iMacs, you can replace the super drive with another drive, an HD or an SSD. So OWC at macsales.com is a really great place to find articles on how to use multiple drives. Oh, this one, 2011, you can do 3 drives inside. So that looks like an older option. So the current iMacs, you can do 2 drives. So you can put an SSD in it, and you can put so you can put a PCIe drive in it, which is solid state, and you can put a standard SATA drive. So you can do 2 SSDs. Normally, when Apple makes a Fusion drive, it makes a big spinning drive for capacity because the big spinning drives are a lot cheaper than the big SSDs. So if I want a 4 terabyte SSD, it's $500. How much was that 3 terabyte drive you just bought, Ken? Spinning drive? 30, yeah. So $36 for a spinning drive, $500 for a solid state drive. So that's, yeah. And so that's why Apple made the Fusion drive, speed versus capacity. In Apple's Fusion drive, it's part SSD where it puts the system and applications because they get operated on so much. And then the spinning drive is for your data, which doesn't have much as an effect on performance because you load a file once and then work on it, but your operating system and application files are always opening and closing support files. So having your boot drive on an SSD is really nice. And of course, if you can afford the giant SSDs, that's even better. In fact, let me find that Apple 8 terabyte SSD. I think was $4,000. So say we go for just a regular Mac Mini. So we can start at the $599 Mac Mini, which is only 256 of storage. That was another nice thing when they came out with the M2 Mac Mini. The price dropped $100. across the line. So we had to requote some of our customers new Mac Minis, and the price went down. Oh, that only goes to 2 terabytes. So I bet we have to go to the Mac Mini Pro to get the 8 terabyte model. Yeah, $2,400 for an 8 terabyte drive. So notice that Apple's 4 terabyte drive is $1,200 and OWC's was $500. Part of that is Apple's markup, but some of that is that because this is a single chip, the silicon on a system on a chip, one chip with the CPU, the GPU, the neural engine, the memory, the storage, and so it makes it a little more expensive putting it on one chip, but it makes it ridiculously faster to go on one chip. The other thing I should mention while we're in here, with all of the Macs, if you look at the Mac Mini and Mac Studio, the 256 gig model is generally a lot slower than the 512 model. Typically because the 512 model actually has two 256 gig SSD parts, basically. And so those two 256s can act twice as fast as a single one to give you that 512 total. So that just moving up to 512 total, that's one of the reasons it's $200 more to go from 256 to 512, even though the rest of it is pretty much the same. But being able to upgrade your old Macs is a really nice option to get some extra life out of it. And OWC is one of the best places because they support the Mac. They give you videos on how to do it on the Mac. You can buy a lot of this stuff from generic PC companies, but you won't find the information you need to actually do the install. Oops. Well, I guess I'm not closing that again. All right, anyone else have another question? Remember to unmute yourself when you have a question. All right. Oh, I'm not seeing. Where is this?
All right, so you're done with your Apple news, or still doing Q&A too along with it?
Yeah, we're done with news. We can do some more questions if someone has more questions. Where's the end? All right, there we are. I gotta make this. Sure, Linda.
Suddenly in my mail, my Mac mail, emails that I get all the time say confirming an order. There's no content in the email.
A lot of those are fake, trying to trick you into calling the number. But there is a rebuild the mailbox command in, I think it's the mailbox menu. Yeah. And what that can do, select the mailbox and then go to the mailbox menu and choose rebuild. What that will do is rebuild the index of that mailbox and re-download anything it needs to. And that should help it come back again. Especially if it says this message has no content.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that frequently on a lot of different platforms. That's not just on the Mac. Yeah, it happens on Outlook too, and in Gmail. So you're not alone, if that helps.
Steve, I had an email problem because I'm using iMac. I went out to my Google Mail, my Gmail noticed that on my computer itself, it also trashed all of my emails there as well. What I didn't want to do was trash everything there, so I had to go back to Google and pull everything out of the trash and put it back in the inbox.
That's the point of IMAP, is it synchronizes between all your devices.
So no workaround for that, huh?
Don't use IMAP. You delete the IMAP account, put it back as a POP account, and then you have to delete each message on each device every time.
I guess I was still too used to the pop.
Yeah. Yeah, POP was designed in the olden days when you dialed in to a computer, downloaded your mail, and then hung up as soon as you can because you paid by the minute. And it didn't sync with any other devices because it was very rare to have multiple devices. And then as people started getting more devices, IMAP came out so that the mail server is basically the master store of your mail, and each device you have looks at the server to see what's there. So if you delete a message on your phone, it's deleted from your computer. And if you read a message on your iPad, it's marked as read on your phone. So everything syncs through the server to let multiple devices all be in sync together. But yeah, when you're not expecting that to happen, it's scary. The other thing that's tricky on Google is let me see if I can log in to here. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Oh,
We can see it.
okay. And so if I can I log into Gmail without giving away any company secrets? Oh, logged into CIDER Mail, sure. Don't switch. You have an all mailbox that is literally all of your mail. Your sent mail, your received mail, your spam, your deleted mail, everything. It is all your mail. And you can turn that on in IMAP so it shows up on your desktop computer and your phone and whatnot too. Where that gets confusing is it looks like it's redundant. So if I go into inbox, here's a bunch of mail. And if I go back over here to all mail, it's the same messages. Well, that's redundant. So we've had a lot of customers will delete things from all mail and then get confused when it's deleted from their inbox too, because in essence they told it to. That was all mail. That's interesting. My window capture isn't capturing the updated screen. So yeah, be careful of that all mail. Yes, Charlie.
Just a quick note, I've been listening to the YouTube stream, and I'm not sure that you're coming through fine, but I'm not sure that other participants are coming through in the audio. So next time somebody asks a question, I'll know better.
It's good. Yeah, you're coming through a lot quieter than you should. And the screen hasn't updated. It's still showing a search window. Um,
No, Steve, my question is not audible.
I had to crank my volume up on the iPad real high in YouTube to hear it. Let me switch off of that one and switch back to that one and see if that works. Turn the volume down on the iPad. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, no. That was not what I wanted to capture. Yes, that's what I wanted to capture. And in Mastermind Lounge is the only Chrome tab open. Application capture, and I want to capture on the display. Application is Chrome. Okay. We'll see if that works any better. Somebody else say something. Let me see if I get an audio feed through.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, and
Can you hear me?
I'm getting audio into OBS, which means it should go into YouTube. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? All right, so that's working better.
Steve, I'm not sure those participants came through on YouTube. Okay, wait a minute. Here it comes. Hold on.
Yeah, YouTube's
Oh, yeah.
a few seconds
Yeah,
behind.
they're fine.
All right. Thank you for that, Charlie. Alrighty. Any other questions, or are we ready to take a break?
Where was this all mail thing that you referenced? I'm looking at my mailbox and I don't see anything that looks like that. Is that on Google Mail or Gmail?
That's a Google function, yes. And it shows
not
up
on my Apple Mail.
if you're using Apple Mail to read your Google mailbox. It can be. If you go into Google Mail,
I don't have a Google mailbox.
okay, then you won't see it. All Mail is a Google function only.
Okay.
You can turn on, let's see, labels. You can turn on All Mail for IMAP so that you will see the All Mail folder on your desktop client. Otherwise, it only shows on the web client for Google Mail. In fact, that's kind of a tip for any mailbox. Any mailbox you have in Google Mail, if you want to see it on your desktop mail, then you can go into settings and turn that label on or off. Now, Google calls it labels, which is interesting. It isn't really folders. When you create a mailbox, it's a label. All of your mail is just sort of splatted together. So if I go into All Mail, I've got 670 pages of messages. And when I go to Inbox, it's only showing 626 starred messages. So the label that it attaches when you move a message to a folder is sort of a Google artifact. And when you have your settings set up for IMAP being able to access your Google Mail on a desktop client, then it will give you those options of showing those labels as folders.
Okay. So you want to take a break before you start
Sure.
the keynotes? All right. Let's see. It's 8:07. What if we do by 8:10? That's not enough time. 8:15?
Sure.
All right.
Alrighty, and I'm going to find that cap I lost so I don't spill my soda anywhere.
Do you want some Jello?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'd like some too, Bob.
Oh, you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Carol,
Oh.
she's got enough for all of us.
You can get here. You can have it. but it's we don't deliver Jello.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We'll just have
If
to
it
look
was
at it.
if it was chocolate pudding, I'd deliver it, but we don't have that either.
Okay. Oh well.
You were muted. Enjoy.
Who's looking at you, kid?
You can hear you clinging on the dish.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody back in?
Since the two presenters for tonight's business about passwords are with us now, I want to make a request. At some point, could you talk about the meaning of hashed and salted? And then the other thing is that I am aware that there is some sort of move toward pass keys. And I don't know to what extent the things you're going to be talking about, actually unknown to me, are pass keys. And So because I don't understand this stuff at all, I looked at a quick couple of YouTube videos about encryption. And one of them talked about, how was it? There was one kind of encryption. There are two different kinds of encryption. And I can't remember the terms. So they started with A, but I can't remember the terms they were. And one of them involved a key managing company. And the reason I was interested in that was that one of the videos that I looked at about encryption, I think, or maybe it was passkeys, was sponsored by one of those companies. So I'm interested in the extent to which you end up giving, your information to another corporation with that sort of setup. So that's where I'm coming from. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Symmetrical and asymmetrical encryption, maybe something like that. I'm not hearing you, Steve. Steve, man, your lips are moving. I don't hear nothing.
Can you hear me now? Hit that button.
Yes.
Okay. I got that mute button. I got that mute button. I got that mute button. I love it. The wonderful thing about standards is there's so many of them to choose from.
Yeah.
All right. I think I will start and talk a little bit about what Charlie was just asking, and then go talk about Keychain, which is built in to the system, and then Ken can do 1Password. Right. In the beginning, computers were free and open, and everyone did whatever they want, and everyone could see what everyone else was doing. And this was generally considered a good thing, until a bad guy came along and stole some information they shouldn't have access to. And so, this is like 50 or 60 years ago. The computers started having login accounts where you had a username and a password. And username and password is authentication, that you authenticate to a system with your username and password, and it says, oh, this is Steve. I recognize his password. I'll give him access to Steve's stuff. And that's the way we've been doing things for basically the last 60 years. When passwords were first created, the system would basically just list them in what we call clear text or plain text, just a text file. And when you typed the password into the field, the operating system would compare that with the password it had in its database, and if it matched, that was great, and it let you in. Then bad guys figured out how to get that password list from the computer itself. Let's see, I'm going to look up there for the camera and down there for the screen. So what security people started doing was encrypting, encrypting the password. First, it was a hash, and I'm going to bring up a website on hashing. No, yeah, a hash function. Go back to here, share screen, do a window, and hash function. So basically, a hash function is a way to rearrange letters so that password on one side of the hash is completely different letters on the other side of the hash. And this was a lot of the early encryption. In fact, you may have heard about the Enigma machine, which was a Polish invention that the Germans stole and used for all their codes. And the British cryptographers at Bletchley Park, including Alan Turing, were able to crack because it was a mechanical hashing computer. So you type an A at one end, and you set all your gears, and at the other end a Q came out. And you would send this message of apparent gibberish to your recipient. They would have their Enigma machine with all the same um, 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 gears set up. So you'd have a table. Everyone would share a table. On Mondays we use gears 1, 3, 5, 9, and 12. And you type a Q, and an A comes out, so that the person at the other end could unhash that text, that gibberish text, back into real text. And I am hearing an echo from me from Shirley. I think it is. You're the only one not muted. All right. I'm going to mute Shirley. Let me make this bigger too. So hashing was a way of the first way of obfuscating data. So you can hide your plain text password into other codes, and there are simple symmetric ciphers. So like A is Z, and B is W, and C is X, and D is Y, and so something simple back and forth. Those types of hashes can be broken pretty easily by looking at letter and word frequencies. So we all know E is the most commonly used letter in the English language. So if you look at this gibberish text, and you can see there's a huge numbers of the character X, that probably is an E. And so that's how the first codes were broken, which is why in the Enigma machine you had rotors that changed the way the output came out, and then you had plug boards that changed the way the rotors ccame out. So I think it was 7 or 9 rotors and 12 or 15 plug boards. So you had trillions of combinations, and without not knowing the exact starting point of the machine, you would never get the decrypted message out of it. And one of the neat ways that they cracked the Enigma code is that they realized in Bletchley Park that pretty much every message from the Germans ended in Heil Hitler. And so by using that known phrase, they could look at what the encrypted text looked like on every message, and were able to help themselves work backwards to figure out the encryption process. And that actually brought up some interesting problems during the war. Is that England knew about many major attacks that were going to happen, but if they warned people, then the Germans would figure it out and stop using Enigma and use a different code. So there were times when England let attacks happen to save their use of the code for something even worse. There are one-way hashes and there are two-way hashes. So a one-way hash means that you apply this function and you get gibberish. And if you I remember how it works now. You can have a hash collision if you don't have a big enough alphabet. So password shows up as ZX5432, and it's possible that WordPass would show up as ZX5432. So two separate encoding words create the same hashed word, and so that's called a collision. And so they started to add salt to the hash, so that they added, instead of password is just 8 characters, we'll make every block of text 16 characters and then 32 characters. Right now, 4096 bits is typical for a password hashing function. And so as computers get better and better, we add more and more bits to make it harder and harder to crack. So a one-way hash you can hash text and get the data, but there's no way from the data to get back to the main text without knowing the hashing function. And so that's a one-way hash, symmetric versus asymmetric, basically one way versus two ways. And what eventually was built out in the 70s is Whit Diffie at MIT, I think it was. He was one of the early cryptographers, along with Hellman. There's the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. And what they came up with is a public key, private key pair. And they are based on factors of large prime numbers. So, prime number is a number that can only be multiplied by 1 in itself. So let's see, prime factor of, 45. So the prime factors of 45 are 3 times, 3 times 3 times 5. So these are the 3 prime numbers that yield the number that we wanted, 45. With small numbers, it's very easy to find the prime factorization. When you have larger and not larger numbers into the millions of units or thousands of characters, then even the best supercomputers can't factor those prime numbers. So you create 2 prime numbers, 2 like 15, 20 character prime numbers. In fact, AES 256 is the current encryption standard, uses 256 bits of encryption. And so it takes, what is that, 256 times 8 bits per byte. Yeah, 32 characters. 32 characters and 32 characters, multiplies it together. So a 32 character prime number and a 32 character prime number multiplies it together. There is no known function to recreate those 2 prime numbers again from that single multiplication. And that's called prime factorization. So you have a public key pair and a public key and a private key. So your public key is half of that, your private key is half of that. And when someone wants to encrypt data, they can use your public key. They would use your private key to encrypt it, and then your public key can decrypt it. And that was amazing ingenuity with Whit Diffie and the Diffie-Hellman key exchange for passing these public and private keys. So your public key is intended to be public, and you can make it public and everyone can find it, and it doesn't matter, because without your private key that you keep secret, the public key is useless. So no one can use your public key only to break into any encrypted data. So what has happened over the years is that, let me go back to here, we have started having too many passwords to remember. And what a lot of people end up doing is using the same passwords on multiple websites. Monkey123. So I got to log into Amazon. Oh, I got to create a password, Monkey123. I got to log into PayPal. Oh, password, Monkey123. Got to log into Citibank. Passwords, 123. And so because we have so many passwords that we have to keep track of, a lot of people just use the same passwords for everything. Then what happens is the bad guy breaks into Target and gets into the Target POS and finds your Target password. And then if you use that same password from Target at Amazon or eBay or PayPal or Citibank, they are into your account. And so your account has been compromised, or in computer speak, pwned. They own your account because they know your password. And so everyone started that were using the same passwords and everything quite a few years ago, when this password breaches first started coming out. So this is a legitimate website from a known good security researcher. They will check your email address to see if your email address has shown up in any public breaches. And so my email address that I was logged into Adobe with, so in October of 2013, 153 million Adobe accounts were breached. They got the unencrypted password hints. So many times when you make a password that asks for a hint, too many people put their password in the hint. So you're trying to log into somebody's Amazon account and you log in wrong and it says, what's your hint? And the hint is the password, then the bad guy gets into your Amazon account. So in this Adobe breach, the bad guys got your username, your email, your encrypted password, and your password hint. And the password was encrypted poorly. Mostly, well, partly because it was 2013, and we didn't know that much better yet. And so if I use that same password from Adobe on other websites, the bad guy now knows that password. And if I go back another page, oops, I can see that right now there are 12.5 billion pwned accounts. So 12.5 billion public passwords, which is, more than people on the earth. So the odds of your email address having been pwned are pretty high, because you're asking a website to save the password for you. So when you type the password in, it can compare it and make it work. So as I mentioned in the early days, it was just plain text passwords. Then they started hashing them to make them a little harder. But there are known hashing tables, and something called a rainbow table is a list of every possible hash. And so bad guys will look at the rainbow table and find your password. So if you have a 3-character, 4-character, 5-character password, it's almost instantly breakable. In fact, GRC has a password haystack option. And so this will tell you how long it will take to break a password. So here I have an 8-character password, and it will take a computer, a 10,000th of a second with a massive cracking area, or 2 seconds with a fast attack. So having a short password is bad. So we need to make different passwords for every website, and the websites need to store those passwords securely, so when they inevitably get breached, it doesn't affect other websites that you use. So in essence, you're asking a website to keep a secret for you, and because people don't like writing down passwords, don't want to manage their own passwords, multiple companies came out with password managers. And in the Apple environment is the keychain. Keychain came out 10, 20 years, 15 years ago, long, ages and ages ago, back even in the OS 9 days. And when you log into a website with your username and password, Safari will ask if you want to save that password. And it saves the password in your keychain, so the next time you go back to that website, it can fill the password in for you. And these keychain passwords are saved under your computer password. And for a bad guy to see your saved passwords, they would have to go to Keychain Access and be able to type in your computer password to see what the saved password is. We often say that if a bad guy has physical access to your device, all bets are off. Virtually no security is enough. They can do a brute force password attack, which is try every possible letter and number combination until they get in, which is why you want to have uppercase and lowercase. So now it's only going to take it takes half a second instead of 1,000th. I add some numbers, I add a symbol, and make it really long. Oops, no spaces. Really long. So I make a really long password, and now we're looking at trillions of centuries. In the early days, there was a push to have in essence, gibberish passwords. Random uppercase, lowercase, letters and numbers, symbols. No one could ever remember it. Virtually impossible to write down and manage yourself. That generally is not recommended anymore. It doesn't need to be gibberish. It just needs to be long. And we've tried to teach ourselves to stop saying password and use passphrase, because your password should not be a single word. Because there's something called a dictionary attack, where the bad guys feed every word in the dictionary into the password field, and they'll get it. They'll be able to get in if your password is a single word. So using a password manager like Keychain will help store all of your passwords together, and you can make a different password for every website, and it will even generate passwords for you. You may have seen that. Let me see if I can get a better picture of it. You may have seen that yeah, go ahead.
Before you get too much further into this, what is the situation with sites that limit the number, or devices that limit the number of tries, and how do these massive attacks get around that?
Yeah. So there's two types of attack scenarios. One is the online attack, where a computer is actually typing your password into a form on a website. And websites limit how many tries you get before they lock you out to combat this online attack. And so that's why you'll see after 3 mistakes, it will either lock you out or it will ask for, a two-factor code. Well, we'll get a two-factor in a minute. It will send a code to your phone in order to prove that it's really you back in. Or the common case is after 10 wrong attempts, it locks you out for 15 minutes, so you can't try again. And so the online attack is when the bad guy is actually typing, more likely, the bad guy's program is typing password guesses into a password field. The more common scenario is an offline attack, and that's when somebody breaks into Adobe and downloads the database of 150 million passwords. Now they can chunk on it on their computer as fast as they can. And in a fast attack, they're assuming 100 billion guesses per second, which is pretty common for a routine computer guessing program. And the massive cracking array, you get a whole bunch of processors together. We talked about a 100-core processor on the latest Macs. Well, you get 100 of those together, or 1,000 of them together, and now you can do 100 trillion guesses per second. And you can break short passwords very, very quickly, even if they're that long. So, this password, 26 characters, it'll take 16 minutes to break. And what's been happening is the bad guys can rent computing power. There's something called Amazon, what is it, EC3, EC2, Elastic Computing, where instead of you buying 1,000 computers to run a cracking scenario on, you rent 1,000 computers from Amazon for an hour. And you're probably using a stolen Amazon account, so you don't have to pay for it. Or you get 750 hours free, with 750 hours a month for free of Amazon computing. And it doesn't have to be Amazon. There's a bunch of other companies that do the same thing. So you don't even have to own the computer that you need to do the cracking on. And so that's the more common cracking attempt, is that someone breaks into a company, downloads the password database. Even though it's encrypted, it can depend on how good it's encrypted as to how long it takes to break into. And that we'll get into in the LastPass fiasco later on. So being able to manage your passwords, to have a new password on every site, have it generate a password for you, so that you can't remember your password even if you wanted to, is the most secure way to do it. And then Apple also has iCloud keychain. Oh, here's the generator. So it can generate a strong password. Let's see if I zoom in on that. Does it make it bigger at your end? Yep. So it'll generate a password. You have no way of knowing what that is. You wouldn't remember it if you wanted to. But the computer remembers that for you in your keychain. And you can turn on iCloud keychain in your Apple ID settings, which then shares your keychain between all your other Apple devices, Macs, iPhones, iPads. So that way you enter a password on one computer, that password automatically shows up on your phone for logging into that website again, which is really handy when you have long passwords, because typing long passwords on a phone is pretty annoying. They've extended keychain in order to also store credit cards online in the keychain, so you can safely store your credit card. You can have secure notes. There was another window showed the secured notes. So you can put passwords, passports, notes. Um, um, so you can make a secure note that you have to type a password to see that note. And in that you could say put in your bank account number, so you don't lose your bank account numbers. But then somebody just looking on your computer can't find it. The number of times we find a file on somebody's computer named passwords is sad. Yeah, Charlie.
Steve, quick one here. Is it safe to assume that if someone gets hold of one of your devices, they can access your keychain? And I bring this up all partly in regard to this latest craze of one or more people hanging out in bars, looking over people's shoulders, finding people's iPhone digital passwords, and then stealing the phone and getting into all their accounts.
Right. So with physical access, they would need the password for your computer or your phone, which is why Apple is really pushing biometric passwords, fingerprint and Face ID. So it's very hard for someone like looking over your shoulder to watch you type your password if you use a fingerprint. Um, but they can if you revert to passcodes. In fact, sometimes you can even look at a phone and see the fingerprint grease and know what 4 characters were used in the password. In fact, that's why Apple went from 4 characters by default to 6 characters by default on the phone, because 4 characters is only 10,000 combinations. You'll hire an intern for a couple days, trying every possible combination. Even when it stops and says wait 5 minutes, they'll probably get in. So what Apple did on the phones, if you type it wrong 10 times, wait 5 minutes. You type it 10 times wrong again, wait 10 minutes. And then wait 20 minutes. And then wait an hour. And then wait 10 days. And then wait 20 days. Someone actually tested that out to see what would actually happen if they kept breaking that. And they found, I think it was 2.4 million hours. Lockout time. Someone posted a picture. Your phone is locked out for 2.4 million hours or something like that. So again, that goes back to how many tries you're allowed before it stops you from trying. But if someone physically has your phone, there isn't a whole lot you can do to stop it on the phone itself. So what Apple has added is the remote wipe. So if you think your phone has fallen into, or even your computer, on a new enough computer as well. It's been on iPhones for a long time, and it's been on computers for a few years now. It's part of the find process, where you can find your computer or phone if you lose it. And if you think your phone is falling into nefarious hands, there is an option down on the end to erase. Did I miss it? Yeah, you can erase your phone or erase your computer, and it sends this erase notice to your computer and erases all the data on it. So even if the bad guy does get a hold of it, the phone will erase itself. So that's kind of a worst case scenario where you can't find your phone, you don't know where it's going to be. Sort of in the middle of that, well, at the beginning there's a play sound, so you can figure out where you left your phone. There's also a, you're not going to be able to see it very well. There's a button on the Apple Watch to make your phone ping. So if, you can see, did you lose it in your house or is it still in the car or whatnot? Or you can put it into lost mode, so the screen says this phone is lost. Please call this other phone number, or you can erase it if you think it's lost completely. So that's their workaround for bad guys having physical access to your phone. There has been a thing with, we've even seen it with police, where they will call a bad guy's phone, wait for them to unlock it to answer the call, and then jump him, grab the phone before it can lock again so they can get into the guy's phone as a way of working around a warrant. But they have to get a warrant in the first place to be able to do that. All right, so you can store passwords. You should have a different password for every website. You should check "Have I been pwned?" to see if your email account has been lost on any breaches. Fortunately, I think my main Mac.com website. Oh no, there were two recent ones. Oh, Twitter. Oh God, 200 million records scraped from Twitter showed up, and that includes email address, your profile, your username. So in the Twitter breach, they didn't get your password. But what can happen is the bad guys will will chain these breaches together. So there might be another breach where they found passwords but not usernames. And by using other information like email address or location or social media profile, so both in Teespring and Twitter, it got your social media profile. So now if they want, the bad guy can use multiple breaches to correlate data to get into somebody's account. Most of the time, it's targeted attacks on someone. They're trying to break into a bank and want to. Well, banks usually have extra security. They're trying to break in somewhere to get money. So a lot of people will say they don't have anything worth stealing. You don't have much money in the bank, but you probably have a credit card. They can log into your Amazon account and run up your credit card bill. They can. It doesn't matter if you've only got $10. If they break into 1 million people's computers and get $10 each, that's a big payday. So Keychain is Apple's password management system for generating random passwords, for storing passwords on your devices, and for sharing passwords between your devices, so that you don't, for the convenience. A lot of people still like having a paper book that they put their passwords in, and then not saving anything on the computer just in case the computer does get stolen. And that is extra paranoid, and I applaud that for some people. There's also a couple different classes of password. If you are logging into Discord to read messages, you don't really need that complex a password. But if you're logging into your bank to transfer money, you want to have a really good, strong password. So some people will do it that way when they make their own passwords. But if you use a generated random password, then you can have a 30-character password on every website, and it doesn't. You don't have to worry about it because the keychain is remembering it for you. And a keychain access is in the utilities folder on your computers or on your iPhone and iPad. There is a in settings. There is a passwords setting. There we are. websites and passwords. And so it will show you all of your saved passwords. Well, it starts by showing you all the accounts the passwords are saved on, and you need to type in either your biometric ID or your passcode in order to see these passwords. And then you can click on one of them, and it will show you the saved password. So if you ever do need to manually type the password, for example, you get a Roku, and you got to type the password on your television. Well, that's going to be very hard to do because you don't have keychain on your television. But you can bring up the Roku keyboard, show your password that you created on the computer, and type it in that way. And the same thing on the iPod and the iPad as well. So the recommendations have been to have long passwords, more than one word. Use a capital letter, and don't make it the first letter of the password, because that's what everyone does. So people have looked at those 12 billion leaked passwords and have done analysis of it. When a website needs a capital letter, it's almost always the first one. So make the capital letter in the middle. When it needs a number, it's almost always a 1 or a 2 at the end. So make it something else. When it needs a symbol, it's almost always an exclamation point. So make it something else. And so now this is a complex password, relatively easy to remember, but it will take thousands of centuries for even a massive cracking scenario to break into it. So Keychain's biggest advantage is it exists on all of your Apple devices. Its biggest disadvantage is it only works on Apple devices. But what they whoops, wrong button. Close. Don't save. They recently added in iCloud for Windows. Keychain is now available in iCloud for Windows. So if you do have a PC running Windows, you can download iCloud for Windows and be able to. Initially, that was a way to just sync your photos and calendar files, and now they're adding the ability to sync iCloud passwords. So that's relatively new. But Keychain's biggest disadvantage is it only works with Apple devices. So if you have Android phones or Windows computers or Android tablets, you need to use a third-party program. And so this is where I can turn it over to Ken to talk about 1Password. And I will make Ken presenter so you can share your screen if you want.
Okay.
So the bottom center group of icons, the fourth one should have shown up.
Okay. Can you see? What do you see?
Not yet. We don't see your screen shared yet. Are you using Chrome or Safari?
Safari.
Okay. We do tend to see it works better in Chrome, but it should work in Safari too.
Wait a minute. It's oh.
I keep trying to click on that. I think it's the presentation button next to the video.
Yeah. It should bring up a window asking you what you want to share. Maybe it went behind your Safari window.
Yeah. Let me see if it's here. Yeah. I'm looking.
All right, let me remove your moderator or your presenter status and give it back to you.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
you have to allow screen sharing, and then you may have to do it in system preferences. It should pop up a message asking you to allow screen sharing.
Okay. I just did.
All right, so let me give you presentation back. Make presenter. Okay. So now you should
allow. I don't want to share this window.
Well, the share window, share screen, but that may only give you that option on Chrome. It may just do screen on Safari.
This is. So to get out of this, I just stop sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to share this screen here. I see it goes to the other screen. It goes to my other screen, my second screen.
Is there
share this window?
Let's see. Is there another button to maybe in system preferences it will let you pick which screen to share? Or if you open it in Chrome, you should get the option to pick a specific window to share too.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to take presenter away and test something in Safari. I can share a window. Only, yeah, it'll let me share a window that's open. But you have to be able to see that window to click on it to share the window. So now I'm sharing the screen into the screen into the screen.
Okay, I know what I can do. I know what I can do. I can do this.
All right. I'm going to stop screen sharing. All right, I'm going
to let me
give you back presenter. All right, can make presenter. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to go into Facebook. Oh, rats. Oh, well.
Yeah. I'm going to join through Chrome.
Okay.
I'm going to get out of this here. I'm quitting Safari. You want to take me off presentation?
Sure.
In Safari.
Where's me? Okay, you're there twice. So we'll make the presenter there.
Because I was going to just quit Safari. Okay.
Well, if you don't leave the meeting, you're still in the meeting even if you quit the browser.
Okay.
Is it working?
Showing up.
No, we're not seeing a screen share yet.
But it says, okay. Okay. How come?
We should have tested this during the break.
um, it says, okay. Let me do a window then. One password. Okay. Share. Let's see if that works. You see anything?
No.
Okay, so it says choose what to share.
And you should get a
Chrome tab, window, or entire screen.
Yeah, so if you go to Window, then it should give you a thumbnail of all your open windows.
Okay.
And then pick the window you want to share.
Share. Permission to capture has been granted. And
Once you go into System Preferences and Privacy, and make sure that Google is enabled for screen recording.
screen recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have to quit and?
You may. It'll tell you if you do. It must have made him do it because he's gone. Alright, so while he's coming back, there are multiple third-party keychain management programs that work on all platforms. 1Password is a common one. KeyPass is another common one. LastPass is another common one, but they've had their share of problems that we'll talk about later.
Okay, let's try it again.
Try it again, yep. Alright, so I got to give you presenter again. Make presenter.
think this is going to work.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this is 1Password, and I'm going to go through this in just a second. But what I wanted to just say, basically, all the things that Keychain does in Safari, 1Password does. So that's my presentation. I'm all done. Only kidding. Come on. So 1Password, I've been using this for a long time. And the nice thing about this, and I'm going to go, I just made an Apple CIDER vault, they call it. And, you can have logins and secure notes and credit cards and identities, but you can also have a whole bunch more things that you can put in here. You can put in your passports, social security numbers, different memberships, all your bank accounts and things like that, the credit cards. And basically what you do is, I'm just going to do a login, and I'm going to just show you, username. Let's put Mac user, and let's put in 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I can do with the password, and just like within Keychain, you can do random passwords, and you can click on it, memorable passwords, PIN codes, whatever, and it will go all the way up to 100 characters. You could do the option with symbols and numbers, or just letters, upper and lowercase. So you can choose what you want as a password. And a lot of the times I think it's good to have symbols and numbers. If you don't like it, you can just switch the password until something, and it really doesn't matter, because you're not going to remember these passwords.
We sometimes joke that, even with a gun to your head, you can't give the password.
Right, and even with your passwords now, if you can bring up which site uses which password, even though they're very similar, you would have a hard time. For example, I have I don't know how many different things, over 250 different things with passwords. And then you just put in w dot Apple CIDER. Oops. Can't spell apple right. And I save it, and then I can just click on the login, and I'm just going to make the name Apple CIDER. Save it. And can you still see that?
Yeah.
Do you see the website?
We just see the 1Password screen.
Okay, so what I did was I just clicked on this Apple CIDER with the applecider.org, and it took me directly to the site. Now, this doesn't have a password, and what it's going to do is, if a site has a password, it used to automatically fill in the password and then open it up for you. And I guess now the browsers don't allow you to do that. So when I click on the name, if it has a password, it will fill in the password, but I actually have to click on login when I do go to a website. And one of the things that I do like about 1Password that's a little bit different is I'm going to pick another vault. I'm going to pick, let's say, a driver's license. And you can put in, your driver's license. And all the information and what you see on your driver's license and the expiration dates and everything. But what I like the best about 1Password, what I'm doing now, I don't know, can you see that I'm putting in a picture here? Does it show that?
Yeah.
You're dragging a picture?
Yeah, we can see the green plus.
There's a plus.
So right over here, I can click. Well, it's too large, so I got to change it. Let me just put in something else. Okay, I just put in something that I had on my desktop. And what I can do is, if I'm going to save it now. If I just go to this, I can do a quick look, and I can actually see the picture. So with your driver's license, and what I do is this can also sync to your phone, and I sync it using Dropbox. So any device, all my computers, my phone, whatever I have that's linked up, everything will change. So if I put this in, let's say the driver's license in this picture, I go to my phone, I can just open that up, click on it, and I can bring the picture up. So I actually use it when I go to Wegmans or the liquor store. You know how you have to show your ID and stuff like that, even though you're old enough and everything. But Wegmans and a couple of the other ones, they demand to see your license. So I just bring it up on my phone, and nobody has ever said anything. Oh, okay, you got it on your phone. Probably not a legal thing, but I do use it and use the pictures or the attachments you can put in here.
Some states are starting to allow digital IDs, and New York is one of them that's working on it.
Right. So, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different things you can put in here. I can keep track of all my software license. In some of the places that you have software, you can there's a thing, all you have to do is just, drag it on here, and it puts all the information in, which is kind of nice, and you can keep track of all your software and your codes and things like that. Gonna cancel, don't save. Credit cards. The nice thing about this with the credit cards, you can put your credit cards in. So when you go to a website, when you go to put in your information, you can actually access all your information, and it would automatically, if you just say fill, it will automatically fill in all your credit card information for whichever credit card you have in 1Password, which is pretty nice. And I'm sure Keychain does the same thing. I think that 1Password is a little bit more robust than Keychain. It gives you a better interface. Let me just see what I got here. I got, so you can take a look and just click on it, and it brings you a list of things. And Watchtower will tell you in the preferences, let me just go to settings. Can you see the settings? The preferences? Okay. Well, anyway, in the settings, this up here. Right. You can. It will actually in some of the things when you do all your different items, you can choose to have the graphics show. Let's say if I'm doing, let's say, Pittsburgh Credit Union, it would show the logo for Pittsburgh Credit Union right over here. It will show you compromised websites, vulnerable passwords. So if you have a number of reused passwords, it will tell you how many, and if it's vulnerable or if it's weak. It will also tell you about unsecured websites. You can do two-factor authorization and authentication. I mean, and so it does give you a lot of different information about all your different logins and secure notes and things like that, and especially the logins that will give you, this site has been compromised, change your password. Your password is vulnerable and all that other stuff. So what I did want to show you, any questions so far?
I have a question. If longer is better and using characters and numbers is better, and you're not going to remember any of these because they're too long and they're, there's no way to remember them, why wouldn't you just set it by default for the maximum number of characters?
You could, but some websites, yeah. I mean, even banks traditionally, have been, they limit you to like 8 characters. And some places you'll see it does limit you like to 8 or 10 characters. They say you got to use eight characters and symbols and this and that. But you could do 100.
But would 1Password be able to detect the maximum number and then just tailor the password to the requirements?
I don't think so. But that I'm not sure. I don't know if they would know on a website when they went to it what was the maximum number of.
I'll unmute myself over here too, where they tried to do 20 characters and the website only allowed 10 without them realizing it, so only the first 10 were significant, and it ignored the last 10. So when they tried to go back in and manually type the 20 character password, it wouldn't work because it only wanted the first 10 characters. Most websites warn you if you try to type too many characters, or you type a symbol that they don't allow. So you try to use a caret or an ampersand, and they don't allow that one. When you're creating a website password, that website will typically give you the requirements in a list. The ones I really hate is they don't tell you what's wrong until you type the password in, and then it says, no, you can't use that symbol. Well, then why didn't you tell me when I was typing it? The other thing with 1Password is it used to be free. Now it's $2.99 a month for a single user, and they have family plans.
Can you see that now?
Yes.
Can you see this?
I don't believe that they grandfathered in the free clients. They eventually made you pay for it.
Well, yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So here are the different plans, and if you take a look, 1Password is going passwordless. The pass keys are simpler, and it looks like that they're going to incorporate this in 1Password. So that's a nice thing that they're going to be able to do. I have a version that I had paid for up front, and I've been using that, and I've been getting all the updates and everything like that. So I'm not paying a monthly fee. If you did want to start 1Password, they are all subscription now. So you can't get just a standalone. You have to get the subscription, which the things are basically stored on their servers, which I don't know. And I guess it's the same. It would be the same thing with how I link it to Dropbox. I guess if somebody got into my Dropbox, they may be able to get my passwords, but they still have to know my 1Password password.
Your
And that's
master
one
password
thing
is
that
sometimes called.
the master password to get into 1Password. And one of the things that 1Password says is they do not know that. They have no way of knowing what your password is.
Yeah, it's encrypted
So
on
if
your
you
computer
did
before it
forget
goes
it,
to the internet.
yeah. So if you did forget it, you have a problem. Um, but I haven't had any problems with 1Password, and I know Steve is going to talk about LastPass, and they had a big, actually two breaches, and I mean they're very popular. But I think 1Password, because of this, has really taken the leap forward and is probably the number one password management now, only because of the password, the breach that LastPass had.
Yeah, most of the
LastPass does basically the same things that 1Password does. It gives you a lot of functionality, a lot of different. Let me just see if I can bring something else up. No, it doesn't give me. Yeah. Um, so basically, everything is stored on their servers. It's $2.99 a month, or if you wanted to get a family plan, if you're all using you have two or three people, it's got a personal and family, $4.99 a month. And I believe this is for different vaults.
up to 5 users.
So, up to 5 users. But this one, the first one that applies to, it's billed annually, but you can use it on as many Macs as you want, as long as basically it's the same vault. So even if, let's say, my wife and I wanted to use 1Password on our computers, if we got this $2.99 version, it's basically the same vault on each computer.
So each person could see the other person's passwords.
Yes. So it does say somewhere, I just saw it recently, it says that you could use it on as many computers as you want, but it's only one vault. So you just link it up, and no matter what computer you're on, it would bring up just that vault. Now, if you and your wife or somebody else wanted to have different ones, then you would do the family plan. In $4.99, for something like this it's not too bad. All the companies now are going to subscription based because they, stockholders love it because it's a constant flow of money coming in. Even the car companies now. We got a new Subaru, and for the privilege of doing remote start, we had to pay a fee to use the remote start.
Yeah, that's pretty skeezy. I think a lot of the higher end car companies have been doing that for a while, but like everything else, now it's leaking into the lower tier car companies.
Yeah, and Chevy just announced they're getting rid of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in favor of the Google thing, and they're going to charge fees to be able to use all the different things. And they're saying by 2030, it's going to be, the subscriptions are going to be a $25 billion business for Chevy. Unless people revolt and say, well, I'm not going to buy your cars, or I'm not going to buy these, services. But here you have services that are already built in, that are already there for a car, like heated seats. If you want heated seats, you got to pay for it. If you want, whatever,
it does
remote start, you got to pay for it. All that stuff.
It does make it a little
everybody's
cheaper.
Going through
Yeah, it would make it a little cheaper to manufacture the car, because you make one car with everything in it, and you don't have to make 1,000 different models of the same car. But it's really skeezy for them to, I think, to do that for individual owners.
But I mean, I guess it's only skeezy if car manufacturers did this from day one,
then we wouldn't mind.
Skeezy. It's
Yep.
like everybody's looking how to make a buck and how to get every dollar out of you. And these subscription-based things are the way to go. I have used Quicken for the Mac, and they went strictly subscription also. I think it's, I don't know, $49 a year, which, but it's something I use all the time, so I need it.
I did find
with the 1Password.
Yeah, I did find if you don't pay the Quicken subscription, it keeps working, but it stops updating, and it nags you every time you open it that you should update. But it doesn't stop working, which is good. Because I was waiting for it to go on sale again.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, 1Password is there's a learning curve involved, but once you get started with 1Password, I think it's a really good program. I mean, I like it. There's another one called NPass, which is very similar to 1Password, and you can pay just a flat fee and use it. It's not as robust as 1Password, but it's another popular password manager.
Yeah, that's the one Nick and Dave like from Soundbites.
Pardon me?
That's the one that Nick and Dave like on Soundbites, mostly because it has a Linux version. It's a little unusual. Most of the password managers will have Mac, Windows, and Android, but when they add Linux, you know that they're committed, because that's every client they have to write is just more work for the company.
Right. So one nice thing about I have this, like I said, it's linked up to my Dropbox, and so I have 1Password on my phone. I have it on actually a lot of my computers, and some of I have tons of computers in my house. And if I update something on my phone, within seconds, that password, if you changed it, is updated on my computer. Because when I open it up, it's linked to the Dropbox folder, and so if you change it on there, it's going to change it on everything. So that's kind of nice.
May I ask a question here? How you said that all this stuff is stored by 1Password on their servers. How breachable is that situation, or not?
Well, I guess it's how secure the company has their, their computers and their servers and everything.
And that's what we're going to talk about a little more with the LastPass fiasco.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure, and maybe Steve,
every company, every password management company is scrambling now to make sure that their vaults are more secure than LastPass was.
Right. I'm sure that if somebody really wanted to get into, servers somewhere, they probably could find a hole. But I think a lot of the bad actors, they go for the easy ones where they know they can get in or something like that. But And that's why I like it, because everything is I have control over it.
Mm-hmm. And you're
So
saving on Dropbox instead of 1Password, so it's less likely to be found. And because it's encrypted before it leaves your Mac, it's just a
right,
blob of random noise stored on Dropbox. So if Dropbox gets breached, um, then they'll have the vault, but it's encrypted with your password.
right.
And then the nice
So
thing also about one password and the other ones is that they have a free trial, so you can try it, see if you like it, use it for was it 14 days for 1Password,
yeah,
see if you like the interface better, before you have to pay for it, which is nice too.
right. So um, if you don't use a password manager, the other thing, this new passkey thing, and I'm not exactly sure myself because I really haven't looked into it yet. How that works, but that seems like right now that it would be something that would be a lot more secure than having passwords.
Yeah.
But who knows? The bad guys maybe are already thinking about that. So
Yep.
who knows?
Well, yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit too. All right. Well, thanks, Ken.
So either way, if you use it on your Mac, the keychain, if you don't have a lot of passwords and you just, you know, it's free. You don't have to do anything. That's fine. If you want a more robust thing where you have a lot of passwords and documents and things you want to put in, and you can put in attachments, which is nice because you can bring them up at any time. I use it, like I said, I use it on my phone. I bring up the my card when I go shopping at like at Tops. I can bring up my Tops card, boom, show it, and use it, um, and so forth. So I like it.
All right.
And that's all I have right now.
Any last
Thank you.
questions
That
for
was
Ken?
very
Any questions? I put everybody to sleep. That's good
All right.
because it is getting late. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take the presenter back,
Okay.
and I am going to. I wanted to show you. Oh, I need to type my password first because I don't want to show you that. In Safari now, when you go to settings and passwords, it will show you a list of compromised passwords. And all of these are old, but I leave them there as examples. And so for this account, this Google account, the password has been compromised, meaning it's been seen in a data leak, and that password has been reused on multiple websites. So it tells me that this has been in a data leak and it's used on these two different websites. That's not as big a deal because these are both Google websites. It's the same. It's the same website. Let me see if Microsoft is the same way. Yeah. So a lot of these are similar, but it will tell you when you go through your list all the ones with the bang on it. The one thing it doesn't do is tell you how many are compromised, which I can kind of see them not wanting to scare you, because Google's password manager will show you you have 77 compromised passwords out of 300 total, which is a little daunting. But so you can see that in your Safari list as well. All right, let me go back to this other window. This window. So, from what Ken had said, the whole problem now is that websites are storing a secret for you. And these websites are getting breached, and they're losing your secrets. So that's the way we've been doing it for 40 years, so it's going to take a long time to move on something else. But the industry has designed a system called passkeys, which is used for account authentication, and it relies on the biometrics of your device. So the website doesn't need to save any secret for you. The website says you're logging in, and then your computer says enter your Touch ID, and oh yes, this is you. Or your phone says enter your Face ID, and it says oh yes, this is you, and then sends that data back to the website saying yeah, they authenticated, they're them, so they can get in with that username. There's still a username, but they don't have to save a password for you. Let's see.
How about with credit cards, Steve?
So far, this is just website logins. Oops, I need to click that button. So you still can use your keychain or 1Pass to store your credit card data and things like that. I believe they're going to start adding additional features to the passkeys operation. So because it uses your Face ID or Touch ID and biometric verification, it's a lot easier to use, and it's safe from phishing, because one of the ways that phishing works is you go to paypal.com, but you're accidentally at paypa1.com that looks like PayPal, and so you type in your PayPal password. That won't work with passkeys because it only works with the right URL address. It won't work with the lookalike URLs. And so as they add technology and features into passkeys, they're going to be expanding that. There is a website, passkeys.directory, provided by 1Password, which is listing all the websites that currently support the passkeys process. The problem is that some of these, and I don't know if it makes that well known, some of these are actually an aggregate company. So what happens is every website has to add passkeys functionality to their website. Right now, that website had to add username and password, and so a lot of bigger companies are deciding they don't want to go to the time and expense of rewriting every website, so they're passing that off to an aggregator company. And there was a cruise ship line. What was it that they found that did that? Not under cruise. Is that under leisure? Travel and leisure. Nope, that's not what I wanted. So this is actually going through Apple to set up your passkeys. So a lot of apps in the App Store will use passkeys when they update that app. And so this is a handy directory to see if the apps you're using are using passkeys. So if we go to, say, Best Buy, no, we don't want to do that. We can sign in with a passkey. You may have seen sign in with Apple, sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook on some websites. That was a sort of an intermediate step where companies didn't have to keep their own password store. So if you sign in with Apple, this takes you to an Apple website where you sign in with your username and password, and then the Apple website goes back to the first one, in this case Best Buy, and says, yeah, this is really them, let them in. So that means that Best Buy didn't necessarily have to store a password for you. So it was a way for companies to not have to deal with all the security of password messes themselves. So over the next, probably decade, we'll start seeing passkeys becoming more and more in use by other websites. The problem is there's always what we call the downgrade attack, where a company, if you forget your passkey, or you don't have your phone with you, you're on someone else's computer trying to log in to Best Buy, it will fall back to the password. And so that password can still be breached. A lot of companies started two-factor authentication, where in addition to a username and password, it would text you a code to your phone, so then you have to type that code in, which is okay, but text messages are not secure. So if someone clones your SIM card, or they can clone your phone identity fairly easily, they get all those two-factor text codes. And there was a couple of really interesting stories about a bad guy who would intercept, say, your Amazon login and show you a fake Amazon page. So you would type in your username and password, and then when Amazon says enter the code, you would think it was really Amazon. You would type your code in. The bad guys would intercept that code and type it into the real Amazon password and website, and then get into your Amazon. And that's people not looking at the URL they're at. So, and that's what I had mentioned earlier about it's called a homograph attack, where the letter looks similar to, yeah. So they can use a Cyrillic A that looks a whole lot like an English A, but to you it looks exactly the same, but to the computer it's different. And so that was a common attack for a while. And again, passkeys wouldn't get fooled by this because it has to be exactly the same URL. So two-factor authentication with a text message is okay, but not perfect. Apple uses a notification that goes directly from Apple's servers to your Apple device. So that's a little safer than a text notification. So if a website offers Apple notifications, that's a better way to do it. But as we've mentioned a couple of times, because the website there we are. Because the website is saving a password for you, they have a secret to lose. And Security Now which is on the This Week in Tech network, their security show, they did a couple of really big, in-depth words, and they have this always have this the picture of the month. What in the world is this security gate accomplishing? Because you can just drive around it. It doesn't make any sense to have a security gate there. And so bad guys broke into LastPass and they got non-critical data. But then they used that non-critical data in a phishing attack by sending an email to someone in the company saying, fill out this form or whatever. And it looked legitimate enough that they were able to trick that person into giving them credentials to the Vault stores, and I'm pretty sure they were stored on Amazon. So the bad guys were able to download, were able to download the encrypted vaults. Yeah, so it got worse. So after the initial attack where they got non-critical information, then they used that to get critical information. And most of the websites are now saying it's time to ditch LastPass. It used to be a good company, but from what they have found in Security Now, digging through the notes, in the early days, when LastPass first came out, written by a guy 20 years ago, there was something called an iteration count, and it was how many times your password got hashed. And in 20 years ago, computers were relatively much slower, so hashing your account once, hashing your password once was fine, and then that hashed password was stored in the vault. A few years later, computers got faster. The minimum hash count went to 500. And then a few years after that, it went to 5,000. Today, the minimum iteration count is recommended to be 600,000. And for websites that for password managers that allow it, put 1,000,000 repetitions in. On a modern computer, it can do 2,000,000 iterations in a second or two. So when it's hashing your password, the number of iterations is how secure it becomes, because then it means the other end, when they're trying to break that password hash, they have to unhash it 1,000,000 times, which takes even longer and is even harder to do. I think that was the only picture they had here. So what happened is that in the vault, the data that is breached included the clear text of the website you were going to. And LastPass considered that zero knowledge and not critical. I'm trying to find where the link was. But the websites you go to are knowledge. That if a bad guy if they have your encrypted vault and can't see your passwords, but can still see every website you went to, that's horrible. People that are searching for medical information, they know every website you went to. They may not know the password to log you into that website, but they know what website you went to. And so, I'm not gonna. It might have been in the previous link. Yeah. So this was his leaving LastPass. They had a bunch of different episodes leading up to this. So when the vault was created, when the LastPass vault was created, the iteration count was 1. And what they found, and Steve and the other security researchers, they found a lot of people still had an iteration count of 1 for old passwords. And what LastPass did not do is when they updated the minimum iteration count, they didn't re-encrypt the vault. So now we talked about low-hanging fruit. It doesn't matter that your passwords now are encrypted with 600,000 iterations, because your older passwords, so websites that you've been going to a long time, say Amazon, you've been at Amazon for 20 years, that may have a 1 iteration count on that password, and it can be broken instantly. And so what LastPass should have done is every time the minimum iteration count went up, they should have re-encrypted the vault. They could give you a warning, say this may take a few minutes, and you can say try again later, but they should have done that. And so people were finding, in fact, I think that was the next. This is the video version available for Security Now. The next episode they called 1. Because that's when they found out that the iteration count was 1 and was never changed. And so even though the vault is encrypted with your password, the iteration count is 1, so a modern computer can still break into it fairly easily, unless you had a 20 or 30 character password, which also wasn't common 20 years ago. So the fact that short passwords, single word passwords, and a low iteration count are stored in the vault makes the vault especially vulnerable for old passwords. And people that have been using computers a long time probably have some old passwords. And that's the biggest fiasco from LastPass. They disclosed what happened. They may have hedged a little bit about what really happened. Let me see here. Yeah, here's their report of the incident. They may have downplayed it a little bit, and they say, to protect your business, change your password. But the problem is, changing your master password doesn't help because the vault has been lost. So what you really need to do, if you were using LastPass, and how many people, show of hands, were using LastPass? What you should really do is every single password you have in LastPass, be it 1 or 1,000, change the password to that website, because your vault is now lost to the bad guys. They can spend as much time as they want hacking at it to try to crack that encryption. And if the iteration count was 1 or even 500 or even 5,000, they're probably going to get those old passwords. So you need to change every single password on every website you had stored in LastPass. And as a result, LastPass has really had a trash to their reputation. They are working to prevent it from happening again. Part of the problem people thought is when Joe Seacrest, who wrote LastPass, sold it to GoTo, that so much level of bureaucracy was added that it wasn't just one guy making sure it was safe. It's whole teams of programmers that now aren't talking to each other necessarily enough to be able to stop problems like that from happening. So every password manager that stores your vault is potentially vulnerable. PBKDF2 is the name, password-based key derivation version 2. So in 1Password, for example, it shows how long it will take to in US dollars if you hire an Amazon server to break a password. So in 1Password, their default is 650,000 iterations. You can go into, let's see, it looks like somewhere, can you change that yourself? I know several of the password managers you can. Apple Keychain you can't, and Apple, I don't think they say what their iteration count. Part of that is Apple's secrecy, is they don't want to give the bad guys any more knowledge than they have. So the fact that 1Password announces that they use 650,000 iterations is knowledge the bad guys can use. Let's see if Apple... see, they have a key bag for MNAS, is all for MDM. So your iCloud keychain is stored on iCloud, which is encrypted with your Apple ID passcode. And if you forget your Apple ID passcode, then you can have a very hard time getting back into all your data. If you forget your computer passcode and you have File Vault encryption on, then you can have almost no hope of getting back into your computer. So when you turn on File Vault encryption on the Mac or iCloud's extended data protection, it will print you like a 50-character recovery code that you have to keep somewhere safe, so that if you do forget your password, you can type this code in to get it back. Let's see, does this tell me what the PBKDF2 is? No. It's sort of the dichotomy of Apple, that you want more details, but if you give too many details, then the bad guys have more of a clue about how things are working. Let me see. Apple Platform Security, maybe this. So Apple does have a white paper on security that gets into some really geeky details about. There we go. 10 million is Apple's number for the PBKDF2 iteration count. So the longer your password is, the better. And don't use the same password on multiple websites. Hopefully, as more companies start using passkeys, you can use the biometric login on your computer or your phone, and not need to have a password be saved at the other end. No secrets for the other end to lose. I did hear a story on Security Now about someone who never bothers to remember their password. Whenever they try to log back into someplace again, they say, forgot my password. They get the email loop, and when it says create a new password, they just bang on the keys and don't bother saving it, because the next time they want to log into that account, they just use the same email loop again. So that's why it's really important to have your email password be strong, so that bad guys don't get into your email, and then they can go to Amazon and say, forgot my password, and it emails them. And then the bad guy has your email, so they get the reset instructions and make a new Amazon password for you. So once passkeys becomes more prevalent, we need to turn off the text notification reset ability. We need to turn off the email reset ability, because all of those fallbacks are the weaker security that the bad guys will then use. I don't need to break into your passkeys account because I've got your email address, and I'll just say forgot my password. And all because some bad guys decided it was easier to steal money instead of earning it legitimately. Very frustrating. So if you're really interested in the geeky tech security, then the Security Now podcast is fun. Oh, so if we go to let me go to 905 was the next list. So their picture of the week was the JavaScript, the definitive guide. Looks like about 3 inches thick. Or JavaScript, just the good parts, about a 1/4 inch. So that tells you a lot about programming in JavaScript. So Security Now is a great for security news. And actually, we talked about ChatGPT for a while. The LastPass vault isn't really human readable. It's full of XML code. And so Steve Gibson, who does Security Now, he put out kind of a call for someone to write a LastPass vault parser, so that you could get your data and find your iteration counts, find information about your passwords. And one of the guys, Rob Woodruff, wrote a PowerShell script, and he started by asking ChatGPT to write a PowerShell script to analyze the LastPass vault. And its first pass was really, really close. And so he was able to tweak things a little bit and get it worked out. So ChatGPT is doing pretty good for writing programs. And we're hearing from a lot of programmers that it may give them a different way of thinking about the way they're writing a program. So the code that ChatGPT generates may not be very good, but it may give you an insight into a different way to go. Unfortunately, this is only for Windows. There may be a Mac analyzer, but so far it's only for Windows. So bottom line is, if you're using LastPass, you probably want to stop and pick a different password manager. If you were using LastPass, you really need to consider changing every single password LastPass was holding for you. And most of the password managers, except Keychain, will import passwords from other password managers. I don't know if 1Password does. Password import LastPass. Yep. So that works from 1Password. So it'll read your you give 1Pass your LastPass master password, and it will import everything for you.
A lot of the password managers like NPass, you can import your 1Password and probably the LastPass into it also.
Yeah.
So a lot of them do have that importability.
Bitwarden gets a lot of high marks because it's open source, and so the source code has been vetted, and it does have a free forever personal version, or you can pay $10 a year to get advanced two-factor authentication, emergency access, so someone else can access your can access your vault. And so a lot of people, and Steve and Leo from This Week in Tech have both said that they've switched to Bitwarden. It's one of the smaller ones I'd never heard of. So $333 a month or $40 a year for 6 people on a family. So that's the other jockeying around, is that each password company tries to compete against the other password companies at different pricing levels. So any last questions on passwords and stuff? Did we answer most of your questions, Charlie, about passwords and the problems and passkeys?
Oh, yeah, you did great. My brain is completely shot. No problem.
Yep. So bottom line is long passwords, multiple words, and different passwords for every website. So, and a password manager helps you do that.
Years ago, Dennis Worster gave a talk back at East High in the forum room about passwords, and he said the main thing was length and at least 20 characters. So I shoot for at least 20 characters. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that you and he have both mentioned, I think, is that you want to, if you decide to use a phrase, don't do something that it would be in a dictionary of phrases, like when in the course of human events,
Right.
That kind of thing.
So but, similar to a dictionary attack, the bad guys will feed a thesaurus, and they'll feed Bartlett's familiar quotes into the password cracking.
Yeah, but so far so good.
Yep.
The other day, I got locked out of my phone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. And I hadn't even tried to get in my phone. I was moving stuff. I don't know if I was holding phone, and I must have maybe touched it somehow with my finger. But all of a sudden, I look at my phone and it says next attempt in 15 minutes. I'm like, but I haven't attempted at all. But somehow it attempted without me.
It may, depending on how you were holding it, it may have been trying to read, like the heel of your palm against the Touch ID reader. And so it thought you were trying to log in.
I like that.
It's butt dialing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. How can a butt dial work? Because you have to touch the Touch ID, or you have to swipe and type your password in. Then you have to bring up the phone app, and then you have to hit dial, and either dial recent, maybe, but dial a person. That's too many things to happen accidentally.
Oh, that's like this. I mean, because if the phone's off, the screen's off, so you don't think it's gonna try and type in your code.
Yeah, so the phone must have been on, and asleep, and somehow thought you were trying to log in, and it couldn't, and so it logged in 10 times wrong, and so it locked itself out for a certain time period.
But you do still have to touch that home button to try to put in the password.
Or type the password. If you have Touch ID enabled, you have to touch the Touch ID board, or you have to try to type the passcode. And I think the first lockout is a minute, and then 5 minutes, and then 15 minutes, and then it gets longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, I got up to 15 without even trying. So that had to be many attempts.
Let's see. Disable for 1 minute after 6 attempts. After 7 incorrect attempts, it's 5 minutes. After 8 incorrect attempts, it's 15 minutes. There is an option in the phone that after 10 incorrect attempts, it erases itself. for
Oh my god.
high secure research, or government or medical paranoid people, where if they
That would be my luck.
yeah.
Accidentally have it default.
Well, then you make sure it's backed up to iCloud so that you can restore your iCloud backup.
Probably rained that day.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the one thing I don't like about these password places is that they're putting an awful lot of passwords in one place, and the hackers take a look at that and they say, "Ooh, if we could hack into that,
yeah. That's why they hacked into LastPass.
Bonanza."
Because that's where the password vaults are. So
whereas if you're just using your keychain, you're not going to have that vulnerability.
Unless you use iCloud Keychain, and then it's on Apple's server, and you can imagine bad guys are trying to break into Apple too. But after this
I'm sure they are.
After this LastPass fiasco, you can bet that every single password manager is going, "Oh, let's check our stuff. Are we still doing that? Do we need to re-encrypt? Do we need to update our iteration count? Let's make sure this doesn't happen to us." And I imagine the class action lawsuits may have already started. And usually what happens in these password breaches, there's no monetary penalty. No one goes to jail. You usually get, they give you a year free credit monitoring. In fact, when Experian got broken into, and every U.S. taxpayer's credit information got lost to the bad guys, the only penalty was we have to give you a year free of credit monitoring.
I think that might have been Equifax.
Equifax, yeah. Whichever one was breached.
But one remedy that strikes me in this situation with the password managers is that your company tanks.
Yeah. That's the other problem. If you were using a password manager and that company goes out of business, you got to hope you get your passwords back before and migrated to something else before they're gone completely.
Yeah, good point. You can have like a going out of business password sale.
Yeah. That's why most of the password managers, if not all, store the database locally on your computer and then sync it through some service to a central cloud repository so your other devices can see that same password list. But it's stored, so even if 1Password goes out of business tomorrow, your vault is on your computer and you can still get to it.
Huh.
So Steve, you were talking about iterations.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, the number of times something has been hashed, or?
Basically, yes. It's the PBKDF2, password-based key derivation function version 2. And it's basically is how many times it gets hashed. So if your password is only hashed once, then the bad guy only has to unhash it once to get back to the plain text. If it's 500 times, then they have to do it 500 times. So the more times it is, the harder it is to unhash the password. And if it's a known number, then the bad guys have some knowledge. So with 1Password, they know they have to do it 650,000 times. With Apple, it was, what was it, 1 billion times? Or 1 million times?
10 million.
10 million times, yep. And so that gives them some information, but that is just currently so computing intensive that it's infeasible. So it's most easy to go after it's most easy to go after the passwords that only had one iteration count and start there.
Alrighty, thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, Steve, are you pretty much done?
Pretty much.
Can I ask one unrelated question quick?
Sure.
I lost my Apple TV remote like a year and a half ago, and just in the last few days, it's bringing up on my TV that your Apple TV remote batteries are low. I'm like, oh, thanks, since I haven't had it in a year and a half, and I've been using my phone. Is there any way, I never thought about it before, to use my phone to track my Apple TV remote? Will it beep or anything?
No. Doesn't do that. But it is somewhere within about 30 or 40 feet of the Apple TV. Because the TV knew the battery was low.
I didn't accidentally throw it away.
Yeah.
I know it's here somewhere.
You can buy a new remote and use it, or you can use your phone as a remote.
Yeah.
We keep expecting them to add Find My. So they've got Find My on the phones, on the computer, on the AirPods, on the AirPod case. Maybe they'll add it to the Apple TV remote.
Yeah. Will they retrofit mine?
No, that they wouldn't do. But at least make it beep.
And what if? Yeah, just beep, light up, do something so I can see it. Because it fell somewhere I can't find. And I cleaned everything. I looked all under my dresser, my chair. I literally looked everywhere, and I can't find it. But now if you have two Apple TV remotes, two Apple TVs with two different remotes, can you use the same? Do they work?
Yes, by default, any remote works with any Apple TV. we used to take the remotes into the store, and at Computer City, and point the remote at the wall of computers and Apple TVs, and all of them would turn on, and go into the Apple TV program, because they all use the same frequency. So you can use any remote with any Apple TV. There is a way to pair a specific remote with a specific Apple TV. So if you have two Apple TVs in one room, they don't try to control each other. But with Apple TVs in different rooms, it wouldn't matter.
So the default is that they will work with any of them, unless I pair them.
Yep, any remote works with any Apple TV.
Okay. I'll try my other remote.
And the Apple TV can also be programmed to use a third-party universal remote. So, if for like your cable TV remote, you can program it to do the Apple TV functions also.
You might have one somewhere. Do you have to have cable in order to use it?
No, just any universal remote will work. Anything that's programmable, which most of them are.
Because with my Samsung, I had two Samsungs, and the remotes, the different remotes would turn on the other one, but not make it work after that. Only turn it on and off.
Yeah, it may have been paired differently than the way Apple does it.
I lose remotes
I saw a guy that offered a service where he'd come to your house with a hot glue gun and glue all your remotes together, so you had like a cube or a triangle of all your remotes in one place. So then they're a lot harder to lose.
And a lot harder to use.
Yeah, then it gets really big. Yep.
I'll throw it to a chair or something.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to discuss that we can officially end our meeting?
Shirley, I have a couple of short points I want to bring up. I kind of wish I'd done it earlier because we've dwindled now to 6 or 7 people. But one is about the survey that Steve put out about where we meet. I had difficulty with that survey because there were something like 3 choices. I think it was the church versus a restaurant versus online only. And I wanted to say that either the church or a restaurant was okay for me, but I couldn't check both. And then later on, I went back to the survey to try to pick just the church. And I clicked on that, and then I went to click on the continue button, and nothing happened. So I don't know if I broke it by going into it again or what happened. But the other thing Steve?
Sorry, I said it shouldn't let you do the survey again.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it figured I had finished the survey or what, but I emailed back. The other thing is that I expect to, I may be out of town, but I expect to attend the board meeting next week. But I sent out the minutes and stuff early this month, and the email I sent out has had 3 or maybe 4 bounce backs from DreamHost saying that it couldn't get through. So not sure what's going on with that.
I got everything.
Yeah, well, them as got, and them as don't know that they didn't, because they didn't. But anyway, I don't know whether I need to try to send that out again before the next week's meeting or what, or what, what it'll do. But I mean, it's not the end of the world if not everybody sees the minutes. But part of it is that in that email, I made comments about a couple of restaurants. One was that somebody had suggested the Olympia restaurant in Gates, and I went and I talked to them. And there are a couple problems. One is that they close at 9 o'clock. So we would have to start our meeting earlier, and that would clash with Steve's work schedule, to say, for just one thing. And the other is that their internet speed was about 8 megabytes per second, megabits. And I know that at the Irondequoit Church, I think that I'd measured theirs at 15, and we got away with using that okay. So I don't know. And the other thing that I mentioned in the email that only went to a few people was that I also talked to Jay's Diner, and that was not feasible for a couple of reasons. But the reason I wanted to go back and redo the survey and say the church only was that I had Googled Rochester, New York restaurants open late, and there was only a very small selection, most of which would not have been suitable for us. So that's sort of where that stands. If anybody in this forthcoming week between now and next Wednesday has any further thoughts on it, they might want to think about it. That's all.
Yeah, thank you for that work, Charlie.
I think I know Wegmans has space to meet inside their restaurant, inside the store, at least ours does. And I think I had asked them about that meeting space quite a while ago. And I'm not sure if they said you have to, order food, which we would do, which they would have as their wing bar or whatever, salad bar, dinner bar thing that they had to a certain point. So I'll ask next time I go about that again.
Good. Yeah, check into it.
Because that could be at any Wegmans.
Well, was it a
if
separate?
They have the space.
Was it a separate space, a room with a door on it?
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure that not all Wegmans have that, but yeah, you see what you find out. That's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, because every other restaurant is, just out in the open as far as I can recall.
Right.
If it's big enough, then you could sit in a corner. But don't know. I mean, if we're 8 people or whoever wants to show up, then, well, we'll see.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to check out. I'll see you folks next week.
All right, Charlie, can I ask you where you're going?
South.
You're going south.
We just came back from south.
We just came back from the south. It's warm down there. There's green grass and sunshine every day. Can you imagine?
That's what I'm looking for. Although the forecast for the next, or when I start out, is it's going to rain for several days, but it'll work out.
Yeah, go farther south and it'll blow away.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I don't want to manage to hook up with a tornado someplace, and they're going nuts down there. Okay. Good night, all.
All right, Charlie. We'll talk to you next week.
Good night.
Okay, good night. All right, then I'm going to officially end the meeting. It's, he's already left, April 12th, whatever. It's 10:21. That's what I'm putting down.
That's interesting. I'm in twice with 2 different cameras.
Yes.
Well, I changed cameras and it didn't remove the old camera. It just brought in the new camera. But it's interesting that the difference in color and white balance between the 2 cameras.
I don't know. Maybe one is a little closer to the light versus the other one.
What's the difference? What camera? What are they on?
One's the built-in camera and one's an external Logitech C920.
Oh,
Which is which? That's the computer camera, and that's the Logitech camera.
don't know.
Alrighty. We're going to
Well,
end the meeting, and good night, everyone.
Good night.
good night.